To Front Office Pros. Today we've got a very special episode for you. Joe and I will be going through our 2024 NFL mock draft. We're just a few days away, so it's our turn to take a spin at the wheel.
Hike!
All right, Joe, so you and I are going to alternate back and forth, so let's start off with one. Who do you got?
Well, I think this is pretty much consensus at this point, Steve. Chicago Bears are going to select Caleb Williams.
Same for me, Joe. I have the Chicago Bears sticking at one, and they're going to be taking Caleb Williams. The odds-on favorite of making it, it's just chalk at this point that he's going to be going to Chicago.
100%.
Which isn't as exciting as a fan, but 2 now sounds a little bit more exciting. Who do you got going at 2?
Yeah, Steve, despite all these rumors with him being disgruntled, with how the Commanders handled everything, and his agent putting the posts out there, I still have the Washington Commanders picking Jaden Daniels. I think he really fits with what potentially Cliff Kingsbury and that style of offense that he wants to run. So I still got Jaden Daniels in Washington.
Joe, that's the difference between you and me. I believe when there's smoke, there's fire. You don't. So I don't think I did this last year because I didn't, there was that whole thing where the odds changed and Will Levis became the odds-on favorite to be number 2.
And that's why you always say be cautious because, Will Levis became the hype and you're like, be careful with the Vegas.
Well, J.J. McCarthy going to the Commanders.
Wow, all right.
I think that he's going to fit what Adam Peters, general manager, wants to do. You saw what they were able to accomplish with a guy like Brock Purdy, who, Mr. Irrelevant, he was able to do in San Francisco. I understand what you're saying about Cliff Kingsbury, but how long is Kingsbury going to be there? Offensive coordinators change a dime a dozen. So I think, he's a little more athletic than what Dan Quinn even had back in the day with Matt Ryan, So I'm going to go with McCarthy at number 2.
You're just not as worried with the fit with Cliff Kingsbury, though, seeing how he doesn't really run a pro-style offense, and that's what McCarthy's used to. Like, that's what I find having a hard time believe, like, that Washington will go J.J. McCarthy. I do think, when they were out doing the Topgolf, I think, if there's any quarterback to have that alpha mindset and stuff and really show something, I think McCarthy's that guy. But I just don't know about the fit.
I think I personally, my reasoning for it is I think Daniels is trying to sink his draft stock. I think I believe it 100% that he wants to play for the Raiders or some other team. So I don't think he cares about going number 2. I think he wants to go the right fit, and I think he was turned off by that whole Commanders thing that just happened with them all coming in. I don't think they liked it. I don't think he liked it one bit. So I think he's actively – I understand you go in front of the media, oh, yeah, they got dogs there, blah, blah, blah. To me, it's all smoke and mirrors. Behind the scenes, this guy could pull an Eli Manning and be like, I'm not playing for you guys. I would not be surprised by that at all.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll see, man. This is, the draft is really now starting at 2 with all these rumors. Everyone knows Caleb's going number 1, but number 2, man, for Thursday night, this is going to be interesting.
All right. Who do you have for number 3?
All right. Number 3. So here we go again. Rumors are Patriots are going to trade down. They're listening to it. I'm not buying it. I think they're going to stick and pick and get their quarterback. And I think it's going to, I got Jaden Daniels going too. So I think it's next in line is going to be Drake May. I think this is what the Patriots need. Just a young quarterback going in there, turn the new leaf. And then, them getting Jacoby Brissett will also allow Drake May to not have the pressure of coming in there and starting year 1, which I think will benefit him greatly.
I agree with you. I don't think the Patriots are going to trade either. I think they should. I think this team, honestly, of all the teams, could use a lot of draft picks to just remold that roster completely. I think they should consider it. I don't think they're gonna. And so as a result, I think they stick, and I'm with you. I think they take Drake May. Now, in this scenario, they could take Jaden Daniels, but I don't know. I just don't. I guess I'm just so used to them having Tom Brady. I just don't see them having a quarterback, like Jaden Daniels. At least maybe they see Josh Allen twice a year and they think, I want a quarterback like that. So I'm going to go with Drake May for the Patriots.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been hearing that the Patriots like Jaden Daniels and Drake May. So it would be interesting in your scenario with both of them on the board, like which quarterback they ultimately choose.
All right, Joe. Who do you got it for? This is where people think it may get interesting.
Yeah. All right, Steve. So I've got a trade at number 4,
Oh boy.
and I've got my Denver Broncos trading with the Cardinals to get to 4. You know, Sean Payton, you sent me that interview where he previews the talk about Zach Wilson and how, there's been too much hate in the media and he's overhated. He's now a Denver Bronco. Well, during the combine and stuff, the interviews, Sean Payton made it a point to mention the relationship he's got with the Arizona GM, mention him by name. So I feel like there's something there. I know that the Minnesota Vikings, the Raiders are rumored to trade up, but the Broncos are the more desperate team to get a quarterback right now. Minnesota gave Darnold some money, so I don't feel like they're as desperate. They also have 2 first-round picks. I feel like the Broncos' desperation, and they jump up and make the move and take JJ McCarthy for.
I know this should be the dream for you for this to happen.
It would be the dream, but I also just think that's the quarterback that like Sean Payton fell in love with through the process. And if they do trade up, I expect that McCarthy would be the guy.
So at number 4, I know there's a lot of hype that the Cardinals are going to trade the pick. And a part of me thinks maybe I get caught up with the whole Monty Ossenfort with he's on the clock and he's wheeling and dealing at the phone and he's saying that he's not even going to consider deals until like that countdown's happening. So I could see it, but I think they're going to stand pat. And I'm going to have them take wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. My thought is you already got the quarterback supposedly in Kyler Murray. You would, if you get all these picks, like you'd be wanting to trade up to get a guy like Marvin Harrison. He's just falling in your lap. So why would you purposely? There's a point when trading back to me makes no sense. Eventually you have to pick the player. It's like you've got a blue chip receiver, probably the best receiver since Calvin Johnson on the table. Why would you purposely say, nah, I want to trade back and collect more picks? To me, it just doesn't make any sense. You've got an elite player. You take him, you plug him into your team, and he's going to do great.
Yeah, I just think, being that there's like a top 3 and people view that they're kind of interchangeable, I think that could be the reason where even if they do trade down, they still have a chance to get a top echelon receiver. And I think the depth of the wide receiver class would have to do that. And then plus just the potential desperation of teams to go get that 4th quarterback at the 4th pick, they might just be overwhelmed with an offer they can't refuse.
So who do you got at number 5, Joe?
All right. So at number 5, I think the Chargers going to trade the pick. So I've got another trade, Steve.
Oh, boy.
And how about the Indianapolis Colts trading up to number 5 to get Marvin Harrison Jr. for Marvin Harrison Jr. to go to the place that is played at. I think Irsay's an aggressive owner. And I feel like if he wants something, he'll try to make it happen. And I truly believe, that number 5 pick is open. I don't think the Chargers are going to want to stick and pick a wide receiver. If anything, they'll go offensive line, I believe. And, just the way that Jim Harbaugh wants to build the offense. So I think it's a realistic possibility for them to trade down and, the Colts be aggressive and trade up and get a wide receiver opposite of Michael Pittman. I know they've got, Alec Pierce. They've tried Josh Downs too, but this would really solidify that wide receiver room for Anthony Richardson.
Very interesting move. I mean, you heard Marvin Harrison Jr. basically come out right and say that his dream would be to play for the Colts like his dad. So I'm sure he would be absolutely ecstatic if the Colts did that. I think it's definitely a possibility. I also have a trade. I'm with you. I think the Chargers are definitely not going to keep this pick. They've got too many holes with everybody they let go. This team was an older roster. Harbaugh's going to want to remold this team into his image. So I have a trade going on, but it's going to be for the Minnesota Vikings to come up to 5 and take Jaden Daniels. I think this is a great fit for them. This works out really well how the board falls. I understand the Raiders would also probably be, in contention to make this type of move. I just think that, the Vikings have more horses. So, they've got the 2 first-round picks. I think that's going to be more enticing for them. And that's why the Chargers make that move.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if it does come down to those 2 teams, plus, you're talking about interdivision too with the Raiders. So I think the Chargers would rather trade with the Vikings.
All right, Joe, who do you got at number 6?
All right, at number 6, no trades. New York Giants stay at 6, and they go with wide receiver, and they're able to get Malik Neighbors and add some an explosive player to this offense that really lacks explosion. There's temptation to go quarterback here. But I just don't know if, given that Joe Shane and Dayball, they're kind of on the outs, this could be their last year. I think it'd be tough for them to, go ahead and pick a rookie quarterback, being that they potentially only have 1 year. So why not give Daniel Jones a weapon like Malik Neighbors?
So for number 6, I have the Giants staying as well, but I have them taking a different receiver and going with Rome Odunze. Every year when we watch the NFL draft, we see the unexpected, and most people in the fantasy community at large would tell you that Neighbors is 2, Odunze is 3, Harrison's 1. But you always see a shakeup, and I think that's where, if nothing, I could definitely see Neighbors. I just felt as though it could be one of those scenarios where they say, you know what, we like Rome better. And so I think, you you're splitting hairs like we talked about, in a previous video. So in my view, I'm going with Odunze for the Giants.
Yeah, I can't blame you there. Like you said, I think either way they'll go wide receiver. Hard to go wrong with either one of those guys.
All right, Joe, how about number 7? Who do you got?
All right, at number 7, I've got the Tennessee Titans taking offensive tackle Joe Alt. This is the guy that most people pick them to go offensive tackle, get a guy to protect Will Levis, which they really need an upgrade in that offensive line, and he's the best offensive tackle in this draft.
I think this is one of the more obvious picks. There's some obvious ones that make like, oh, this is like screaming at you, telling this is going to happen. I'm with you. I think Titans stay and they take Joel. They need a left tackle badly. They get the best of the bunch. They already addressed so many different needs at the offense. They brought in Pollard. They've got Tyjae Spears. They brought in Calvin Ridley. They've got DeAndre Hopkins. So to me, I think, if they're trying to make this offense high caliber, they're going to need to protect Levis.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. How about number 8?
Yeah. So I'm kind of going with another obvious pick from, what I've seen, and the consensus seems to be. So Atlanta Falcons at 8, they get their edge rusher in Dallas Turner. We talked about in previous IDP videos how much that the Atlanta Falcons need to improve their pass rush and just get some guys to go ahead and get after the quarterback. And, Dallas Turner definitely provides them that.
Same for me. With the Atlanta Falcons, I have them staying, and this is another chalk pick. I think Dallas Turner is going to be the pick, the first defensive player off the board. Now, it could be a lot too. It could be Jared Verse. Could be, I've seen Byron Murphy, interior defensive lineman, possibly be the pick as well. But I'm going to go with Turner. It's interesting. You did hear that buzz about Penix possibly going to 8. I'm not buying that one.
I'm not buying that either, man. They just paid Kirk Cousins so much money. How do you justify picking a guy like Penix?
No, me neither. All right, how about number 9, Joe? What do you got?
All right, at number 9, so I've got a trade apping in at 9. I think that the Bears, this is their second pick in the draft. I think they're going to be open for business, and the Cardinals going to move up from that 12 spot to go up to number 9 and take wide receiver Rome Odunze. And like I said, I think if the Cardinals trade down and don't get one of these top 3 guys, it's going to be a major mistake. So I've got them trading up and going ahead and getting Odunze and getting their wide receiver outside of Michael Wilson.
Yeah, that's interesting. I could definitely see that happening, a little short jump. I also believe this pick is going to be traded. The Chicago Bears have 4 picks, I believe, in this draft. So there's no way they're going to leave with 4 picks, and they're not going to trade the number 1 pick. This is the one that they can leverage. So I think for sure they're going to trade back. Joe, get ready for this one. Buckle up. I got the Bills making a Julio Jones type trade, going up all the way to 9 to take Malik Neighbors. No, it might not be I could see him trading up. I could also see him trading down. It's a deep wide receiver class. There could be someone who wants to come in the first round, get a 5th-year option for the quarterback. But in this scenario, I think Neighbors is the guy that they would really like to see. There's going to be a zone where it's like, okay, this could be possible, be doable. I think number 9, it could work. So that's why I got Malik Neighbors going to the Bills.
Yeah, very interesting. I think, I'm not surprised that you made that happen, but I think that'd be very interesting. I'm expecting the Bills go wide receiver in the first round, and they've shown that they've been aggressive in the past if they really truly identify that guy. So I don't think it's unrealistic.
Well, and they got that 2nd-round pick from the Stephon Diggs trade that's going to be the Minnesota pick. So that gives them extra ammunition to make this move happen.
Right. Very true.
All right. How about number 10, Joe? Who do you got?
All right, at number 10, I got the New York Jets staying, and I got them taking Brock Bowers. I think a lot of people might go offensive line, but I think, Brock Bowers not only gives them an offensive weapon for Aaron Rodgers to be able to utilize, but he'll also kind of, be there as an extra offensive lineman and help in the run game and, the pass blocking game as well.
Yeah, so for number 10, I got the Jets staying, and I also have them taking tight end Brock Bowers. If you look at that team, that's a huge void in that offense. Now, Aaron Rodgers hasn't used Bowers, but Bowers is he hasn't used a tight end, but Bowers is kind of a unicorn in my view. So in my mind, you got to, when you have a guy like that on the table, you got to take him. They could go offensive line. They got Tyron Smith. They got Morgan Moses, I believe is his name. But the problem, but they're older guys, and they might not be able to stay healthy. So they may take a lineman here, but I think they're going to go Bowers.
Yeah, and being that I've got the top 3 wide receivers already off the board, I think just the terms of a playmaker, I think Bowers makes a lot of sense.
All right, how about number 11? Who do you got?
All right, so at number 11, the Minnesota Vikings take edge rusher Jared Verse. Not a quarterback. I've got them not trading up, so they still have their 2 first-round picks, and they did go out and get Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard in the edge rusher, but why not give Brian Flores just another guy to create and wreak havoc and get after the quarterback? And Van Ginkel's been a traditional backup. I'm not sure he can handle that starting role.
I do find that interesting that you don't. I mean, let's see if Minnesota drafts a quarterback later on, but I just find it kind of surprising because there's been all this talk that they're going to try to trade up aggressively to get that quarterback. So far, no quarterback for the Vikings. So interesting. That's how you have it. For 11, I had the Vikings and Chargers trade. So I have the Chargers staying at 11 now, and they're going to take Alu Fashanu, the offensive tackle out of Penn State. I think Harbaugh likes to build within the line. You heard that comment that he made about the offensive line is the only group that can't look to somebody else. So, to me, now you got Rashawn Slater at left, this guy coming in at right. He's going to really build it from within.
Yeah, I think it's very logical for them to go offensive line for sure.
All right, Joe, what do you got at 12?
All right, at 12, so this is the Chicago Bears draft pick after I had them trading down with the Arizona Cardinals, and I've got them taking offensive tackle Fashanu, as you just had for the Los Angeles Chargers.
Interesting. So Darnell Wright last year, and now they're doubling up.
Yep, got to protect their new investment in Caleb Williams, and why not, get him another offensive tackle.
So at 12, I've got a trade. I've got the Broncos trading out of 12, trading back with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I have them taking cornerback Keon Mitchell. There's a lot of hype that Howie Roseman loves to move around the board. He's a trader, and we've seen that, year over year he's done that. Corner's a desperate situation for them right now. So I think Mitchell is the best guy on the board. He goes up and gets him.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just seen reports, recently saying that the Eagles were looking to possibly move up. So I think that'd make a lot of sense. George Payton's also a guy that likes to trade down, and Broncos could use some future picks, especially, they don't have a second round pick in the draft.
Well, in this scenario, I have the Broncos missing out on the top QBs. They could take a guy like Penix or Nix right now, but I don't think they have to. I think they can trade back, and that's what they do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, who you got for 13?
All right, at 13, I've got the Las Vegas Raiders going with Michael Penix Jr. I know they've been rumored to kind of be involved in Jaden Daniels. Michael Penix is also a guy that's been in there. I don't believe they think that, Aiden O'Connell's the guy there at the quarterback position. So I like the fit with Michael Penix in Las Vegas. I
have the Raiders staying as well. Don't think they have the horses in the race to get back up, but they are in the market for a quarterback. I'm with you. They take quarterback Michael Penix Jr. Just think that he's the type of guy that they would be very interested in. I mean, he loves throwing the deep ball. I mean, the Raiders are not the type. They're an exciting type of franchise. They want to see, a lot of glitz and glam. So to me, it makes all the sense in the world for him to go to the Raiders. And honestly, what it reminds me of is kind of when the Patriots sat back and got Mac Jones. Obviously, Mac Jones didn't work out. But there are those scenarios where you just sit and the guy just falls to you eventually.
Yeah, because, sort of that same thing. Everyone thought Mac Jones was potentially, number 3 pick in the draft, and then he drops, and Patriots just stayed and was able to get him. So,
how about number 14, Joe? What do you got?
All right, number 14, I've got the New Orleans Saints taking offensive tackle Taliese Fuaga and adding some protection for Derek Carr amongst that offensive line.
For the Saints, I have them staying pat. I also have them addressing the offensive line, going with offensive tackle Taliese Fuaga as well. If you look, their offensive line's in shambles. They need a tackle desperately. So, to me, this is another pick. They may like somebody better than Fuaga. I don't know. That's the tough part is you can kind of say like, okay, we have a pulse as to what the position's going to be, but it's harder to determine which one they actually like.
Yeah, for me, I just was looking at different consensus mocks, and that was a name and a place that kept popping up. So I stuck.
Well, he did really well, I believe, in the Senior Bowl. Really rose up the ranks. So we'll see if it ends up being the case. How about for number 15?
All right. So at 15, this is now the Chargers pick after they made that trade with the Indianapolis Colts. And I've got them, you mentioned it before, Harbaugh talking about how much he loves addressing the offensive line. And I've got them taking offensive tackle J.C. Latham, big offensive tackle from Alabama. A lot of people have him the 3rd best offensive tackle, and I think he's a good fit to provide some protection for Justin Herbert and amongst that offensive line.
So at number 15, I've got the Colts staying, and I have them picking a wide receiver, Xavier Worthy. This might be a little bit high for most, but speed kills, Joe. We saw John Ross win in the top 10 because of that speed. We haven't seen a prospect of that caliber when it comes to speed probably until Xavier Worthy and what he did, the show that he did at the Combine. Could you imagine Anthony Richardson with those deep bombs, with, Worthy just, run a fly down the field? I think, he brings a different type of receiver. You got Pittman, the possession receiver. You got Pierce, kind of the taller guy who can do deep ball. And then you got the slot guy with downs. Then you got Worthy, who's the gadget guy, but also can run deep. And it just got that blazing speed. So I think the combination of Worthy and Richardson could be very good.
Yeah, that's an interesting fit. I hadn't really thought of Worthy going to the Colts, but I do think, obviously, I think they're going to be looking to, add to that wide receiver room. So I think it makes sense.
All right, what do you got for 16?
All right, at 16, this was an interesting one for me with the Seattle Seahawks, but I ultimately decided to go with offensive tackle Troy Fautanu. I believe, yes, the Washington offensive tackle. He's able to stay in the state, goes to Seattle, and talk about an offensive line that really needs an upgrade. I did consider addressing edge rusher or going to defensive line as well, but I think they look to protect whoever's going to be their quarterback moving forward.
So for Seattle, I have them staying at 16. I also have them taking offensive lineman Troy Fontana. I think the interesting thing is, do they play him at offensive tackle to replace Abraham Lucas and have those bookends with Charles Cross, or do they play him inside? My understanding is he can play guard or tackle possibly, so they may kick him inside and have Lucas and then Charles Cross. But either way, I have them also addressing the offensive line.
Interesting.
And we've had a couple of the same picks here, Joe.
Yeah.
How about number 17? I think this could be another same pick.
No, this will not be another same pick because I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars going with cornerback Quinyon Mitchell. You mentioned it. I think he's the top corner in this draft, and the Jacksonville Jaguars really need to, increase that cornerback room. Obviously, Darius Williams, who was productive for them, is going back to the Rams. So they fill a need with Mitchell at corner.
So it's kind of interesting. This is the first corner off the board. Do you think it's too low to not have a cornerback taken, earlier? I mean, 17, that's pretty low down the board.
It is. I just think the defensive players, I think there could be a lull because really this class is just heavy offense,
It really is.
and for me, there was just obviously you had the quarterbacks at the top, kind of a little bit of a run on receivers, and then there's so many offensive linemen. I got to run an offensive lineman, and I think the defense could just go to kind of the wayside until we get to the later parts of the round.
All right, so for 17, I got the Jaguars staying, but I have them taking wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. You saw the Jaguars try to lobby to keep Calvin Ridley. Ultimately, he elected to go to the division rival with the Tennessee Titans. So I think they are still trying to give more playmakers to Trevor Lawrence. I think they want him to be as successful as possible. I know they brought in Gabe Davis. I just don't think that's enough. You've got Gabe. You've got Zay Jones, who he has a pretty good rapport with. You got Christian Kirk. I think they might bring in another guy. May not. They do need help with secondary. They did lose Darius Williams. They decided to cut him. So that I definitely see that as a possibility, Joe, as an alternative.
Yeah. And then, wide receiver draft class is so deep. I think they could address that elsewhere, in the later rounds.
All right, Joe, what do you got for 18?
All right. At 18, I've got the Cincinnati Bengals going with defensive tackle Byron Murphy. They have a need there at defensive tackle after Reader goes elsewhere. And I think they fill that void with Byron Murphy, who's, he's got the quick get off. He really impressed me at the combine. And I think, gives them the sack upside out of the inside position.
I want to say, didn't they bring in Sheldon Rankins and they have BJ Hill? That's why I kind of opted not to have that move happen.
Yes, you would be correct. But, those guys, they're on the older side.
They're Jags, but just average guys, as Mel Kiper would say.
Just another guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could say that. But I think these teams, they like to have depth in the interior.
Oh, no, I agree.
Outside and rotate them. So, and I think Byron Murphy is a guy that you want to keep fresh so that he can keep utilizing that speed throughout the game.
All right, so for 18, this might be a shocker of a pick, but I have the Bengals taking wide receiver Adonai Mitchell. This might be high in some people's minds, but the whole drama with T. Higgins, I don't think they're going to be able to keep him long term. So how are they going to address that? They've got this rich wide receiver class. I think bringing in Mitchell, he can partner with Jamar Chase for the future. They don't have to feel like they have to hold on to T. Higgins. So I think at the end of the day, it makes a lot of sense for them until they go ahead and attack a strength with a strength.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I like Mitchell a lot. I think that'd be a good spot for him.
For fantasy, people would be very happy. How about number 19, Joe? Rams haven't had a first-round pick in a long time. Do they keep it?
Yep, I got the Rams keeping it, and I've got them going with edge rusher Laiatu Latu. I feel like they've got a lot of young guys amongst the defensive line. Thought about going defensive tackle there, but I think Latu is a really good fit, and I'm hearing that Latu is going to go in the top 20. Peter Schrager says for sure he feels like he's going to go in the top 20, so slotted him 19 with the Rams.
Oof, Peter Schrager knows best, so I might be missing out on that one. But at 19, I've got the Rams sticking and going with Byron Murphy II. This is a dream for them. They lost Aaron Donald to retirement. They have Kobe Turner, but they could use reinforcements now. And this guy falls right into their lap. They're going to be more ecstatic.
Yeah. That's easily another possibility.
How about for number 20, Joe? What do you got?
All right, number 20, Pittsburgh Steelers are going to stay here, and I've got them taking an offensive tackle, Amarius Mims. This is a guy that I keep hearing about, and I feel like he's rising in the draft. And I think the Steelers, they're going to need to protect Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, whoever. And then I think they're trying to get back to the old ways so I think they beef up the offensive line. They brought in,
Arthur Jones,
Smith, who loves to run the ball and, get them a big offensive tackle in Mims.
I just mentioned Broderick Jones. I thought you were going with the other offensive lineman. But for me, I also have the Steelers sticking, and I have them going with offensive lineman Graham Barton. Some say he's the best interior offensive line. I thought about offensive tackle, Joe. I just don't know if they want to address that. They got Broderick Jones recently. I want to say the other tackle might be Dan Moore or something of that nature. He's, I think, okay as well on a longer-term deal. So I think they're going to want to address the interior. That's why they go there.
Yeah. They definitely could do that as well. In the consensus rankings I looked at, a lot of mocks have your guy going to the Steelers.
How about number 21? Who do you got?
All right, at number 21, got the Dolphins staying, and they revamp the interior defensive line, and they go with Jerzon Newton. Obviously, they lost Christian Wilkins. There's a big void in that defensive tackle spot, and I think Newton's a great guy to fill that void.
I got the Dolphins keeping the pick at 21. I'm having them go with offensive lineman Jackson Powers Johnson. They just lost Robert Hunt in free agency, so I go with a different player that they lost. I think you're going to stick with the offensive line. This offense, Tua cannot have pressure in his face. They got to, have quick release, so they're going to need that help in the interior.
Yeah, I like that pick. I could definitely see that.
All right, what do you got for 22?
All right, at 22. So in my mock save, the Eagles don't trade up. They stay at 22, and they take Cooper DeJean to, improve that secondary there. I feel like, it's interesting. Peter Schrager goes on to the Pat McAfee show, and he specifically called Cooper DeJean a corner. Some other teams think he's corner/safety, but, maybe he's that C.J. Gardner-Johnson type player, and I think he'd fit great in Philly.
So I had the Denver Broncos trade back with the Eagles, so the Eagles could take Keon Mitchell. I had the Broncos staying, and they're going to draft quarterback Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix is the type of guy that Sean Payton wants to have. I think it's either him or McCarthy. Don't think he's going to be able to get McCarthy, so he's going to pivot, trade back, and get Bo Nix.
Yeah, I mean, and pretty much Nix or McCarthy are the two guys to be rumored to the Broncos, so we'll see what happens.
How about for number 23? Who do you got?
All right, at 23. So for me, Minnesota Vikings didn't address the quarterback position earlier in their pick, so they do it right here at number 23, and they go with quarterback Bo Nix. And he gets an opportunity to play with a star-studded offense, gets to play with Kevin O'Connell, got Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and Addison. So a great situation for Bo Nix to walk into.
Very interesting, Joe. So I had the Chargers trade with the Vikings, so this is a Chargers pick. I have them taking best player available, going with defensive end Jared Verse. Joey Bosa is not getting any younger, is out a lot of injuries. I believe Khalil Mack has 1 year left on his deal. So ultimately, not the best landing spot for him to play right away, but I do think that he'll have a runway to be the guy in the years to come.
Yeah, they desperately need it.
All right, how about number 24? How about them Cowboys?
All right, at 24, them Cowboys are going to take wide receiver Xavier Worthy. You know how Jerry likes the speedy guys, and he gets enamored with those 40 times. And I think Xavier Worthy caught his eye. He stays in the state of Texas. And, they lose Michael Gallup. I feel like they need some speed at the wide receiver position opposite of CeeDee Lamb.
I also have the Cowboys addressing the wide receiver spot, but I had Xavier Worthy taken earlier, so I had them taking Ladd McConkey. I think McConkey would be the best player available at receiver. I talked about him being a really good fit there. I think he's a different type of receiver than CeeDee Lamb is. They lost Gallup, like you mentioned. They talk about how they're going all in. This is a year they're going all in, and Cowboys fans are like, what are you talking about? You've done nothing. Well, I think they try to give help for Dak to really see if Dak can be the guy to bring him to the promised land.
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, Joe, who do you got for 25?
All right, 25. I've got the Green Bay Packers selecting cornerback Terrion Arnold. A lot of people had Kool-Aid McKinstry going there, but I think Terrion Arnold is the better corner for Alabama. And I think, him being out opposite of, Jair Alexander, or, just to add depth there at the corner position, because Alexander hasn't been able to stay healthy. Neither has Stokes either. And I think I've heard people mention Terrion Arnold also kind of being a nickel guy. So maybe that's where he gets to start early on.
So for the Packers, I have them staying at 25. I also have them addressing the secondary and going with cornerback Terrion Arnold. Jair Alexander, there were some issues with him. They eventually at one point benched him. So what's the future look like for him? You also mentioned the guy at Stokes that they really like, but guy can't stay healthy and be on the field. So I think it's a position of need. And, Arnold is one of the better corners, so they say, and he falls right to him.
Yeah. I just like plays with a chip on his shoulder, and he's kind of got that dog mentality. I like that, Steve.
I know you do, Joe. How about he might be a Denver Bronco. How about number 26? Who do you got?
All right. 26, Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Chop Robinson. I think they need to add some depth to the edge rusher spot there, and this will provide them, speed. And I think he pairs nicely with what they have in Elijah Cansey inside.
Yeah, so for me, I have also got the Bucs addressing the defensive line, but I'm going with Laiatu Latu. They need somebody. They lost Shaquille Barrett, so they got to bring somebody else into the fold. So to me, it makes all the sense in the world. Latu's still there, so they take him.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if Latu's still there. Based on everything I'm hearing, I think he's top 20. But
I know. Well, we'll see if Schrager's right. He's not always right. How about number 27?
All right, at 27, Arizona Cardinals' second pick here, and I've got them going with cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. The Cardinals need a lot of things, but I think we mentioned the defense, the depth in this draft just isn't there, and they desperately need some secondary help. And I think Kool-Aid McKinstry will do that.
Secondary is one of the worst for the Cardinals in the National Football League, so it totally makes sense. I went ahead. They went best player available and went with defensive tackle Jerzon Newton, guy who I think as a result of him being not healthy during this draft process, his value is kind of sunk a little bit, but lands in a great spot for the Cardinals, and he'll be able to be, I think, probably the best player on that defensive line that needs some serious help.
Yeah, like I said, they got a lot of holes to fill, so curious to see how do they just decide to fill all of them.
All right, Joe, what do you got for my Buffalo Bills?
All right, Steve, for your Buffalo Bills, I've got them going with wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. They lose Gabe Davis, also Stephon Diggs, so they get a bigger body guy with Brian Thomas Jr. and really feel like him and Josh Allen would be fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Bills, that's no secret. Although Brandon Beane would like you to think that we're not going to address the receiver position. We're gonna. There's no, I mean, if we don't, I'd be shocked. I think it has to happen. So I had the Bills trading up for Neighbors, so that's now the Bears' turn to be on the clock, and I had them taking edge rusher Chop Robinson. I think he would be a great combination with him and Montez Sweat. Sweat, I think more of a finesse type of pass rusher, whereas Chop Robinson is all about the speed. So I think having the two of them could pan out very well.
Yeah, I could definitely see the Bears, in the first round with one of their picks going edge rusher to, like you said, pair alongside with Montez Sweat.
All right, Joe, how about your favorite team in the NFC, those Detroit Lions?
All right, and Detroit Lions, they also address the edge rusher position to get somebody else opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, and that's going to be Darius Robinson, guy who I feel like has been getting talked about. The buzz is increasing. He's going up the draft boards. And I really think he provides a good guy opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, like I said, and get after that quarterback and help their secondary, which isn't the best.
That's a great landing spot, Joe. I'm kind of wishing I did that. But I went ahead and had them taking defensive back Cooper DeJean. I think he's kind of that chess piece that could really help the secondary. I know they brought in Carlton Davis and Amik Robertson. I just don't know what to really expect out of Amik Robertson in particular. They have Brian Branch, who did really well. I think bringing in, and they've got Kirby Joseph, I believe is his name. But I think that DeJean coming in there, I think could add that chess piece for that defense. That could be really helpful.
Yeah, I could definitely see that a possibility.
All right, Joe, number 30. What do you got?
All right, at 30, I've got the Baltimore Ravens selecting Tyler Guyton.
Offensive tackle from Oklahoma.
Yes, offensive tackle from Oklahoma. I think they They just need that additional help along the offensive line. They want to, protect Lamar Jackson, but also they just want to, be able to run the football now with Derrick Henry and play bully ball, and that's Baltimore Ravens football. So they get a nice offensive tackle.
Makes sense. I also have them addressing the offensive line. They lost Morgan Moses in the trade, so they need to be able to address that. So I'm going to have them take offensive tackle J.C. Latham. He's still available. I know you mentioned he's one of the better offensive linemen. And the other thing, too, is I want to say this is true, but I could be wrong, but I feel like the Ravens have a knack for Alabama players. They love drafting Alabama players. So I think this would be a dream for them to take Latham and have him go to the Baltimore Ravens. So who do you got for 31, Joe?
Man, we're almost done here.
Yes.
At 31, San Francisco 49ers. We're going to stay at the offensive line position, Steve, and they go with Jordan Morgan.
Interesting. Why is that, Joe?
Jordan Morgan's, another guy that I keep hearing his name, and feel like he's, heavily talked about in mocks recently. So, I feel like the 49ers could use the help at offensive line, and they go with Jordan Morgan.
So I got the Niners staying packed, but they're going to go with cornerback Nate Wiggins at Clemson. I feel like they could address the cornerback position. I believe Charvarius Ward only has 1 year left. Could very easily have Wiggins be across from him also. I know DeAndre Lenoir has done pretty good, but I think that they could address the secondary. I think Wiggins makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, if there's one weakness on that defense, it's definitely the cornerback position.
All right, Joe, and even though I don't want to say it, how about those Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs? Who did they take?
Yeah, and of course the Kansas City Chiefs here at number 32, they just get better. And I've got them going with wide receiver Ladd McConkey. I think they'll end up going wide receiver. Obviously, we hear Rashee Rice is going to get some sort of a suspension. Not sure how long it is, but he's going to get suspended. But even apart from that, they lose MVS, and he had his own job troubles. And Rashee Rice, outside of Kelsey, was really their only reliable wide receiver. They get Ladd McConkey, who's just a great route runner, and I feel like he'd excel with the Andy Reid system with Mahomes.
Yeah, so for me, for 32, I've got them taking offensive tackle and Marius Mims. I think that with Donovan Smith no longer
wide receiver.
No, because I think now that the offensive tackle Donovan Smith's no longer there, they got to keep Patrick Mahomes upright. So I think it's very important that they address that position. So I think they're going to go offensive tackle.
Interesting. They definitely could use that.
They could. Not every team has some weakness, Joe. Not everyone's full of strength.
Yeah, well, especially, the issues that Taylor had at right tackle last year.
Oh, yeah. So, Joe, we'll talk about 4 other guys who you weren't able to get in, but you wanted to get them in. Could you name 4 for me?
Yeah, so those guys for me, I know he was in yours, Steve, but I've got wide receiver Adonai Mitchell, Jackson Powers Johnson, corner Nate Wiggins, and I'll go with wide receiver Roman Wilson.
Interesting. Okay, for me, I had wide receiver Troy Franklin, defensive lineman Darius Robinson, linebacker Peyton Wilson, a guy who we saw Jack Campbell be drafted in the first round. We weren't expecting a linebacker to be taken in the first round. I think if any were to be taken, it would be him. So question is, does he have a Jack Campbell type rise? I feel like we're not hearing much about him, but it could be possible. And then cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. I know you had him in this in your first round. Just couldn't find a spot for him.
Yeah, it's similar for me with Nate Wiggins, but I do feel like, the Lions were kind of an anomaly with that Jack Campbell pick. Everyone had him going to the second round, but their GM just doesn't care where they take him. They're going to take the players that they feel like fit their system and who they like, and they don't care where it is.
So that does it for Steve and Joe's NFL mock draft for 2024. I know we cannot wait for this NFL draft to be kicking off here.
I'm sick of the mock, Steve. I'm ready to know the real thing.
Well, now that we did ours, now we're ready to sit back and relax.
Absolutely.
But we'll be back after the draft, give you our reactions, who are the winners, who are the losers. We're looking forward to that, and you're not going to want to miss it. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.